Good morning. It is Saturday morning, and normally I film the garden tour on Friday evening, and I did, except there's like whole chunks of footage that are not there. So rather than piecemeal it together, I figure I might as well just do this over again. Good morning, Stumper. Hi, baby. Hello. So when I installed the fencing for the duck garden a couple months ago, we moved the fencing over because at first we just had the little stakes and the rabbit fencing, and it was just kind of stuck in there. But when we were putting in actual wood posts and all that, it had to shift over just a little bit so that we could get a straight line going all the way down through there. And that left this strip of grass. So my plan for that is this winter, when everything is dyed back, I'm going to dig out all of this grass and actually put in a little flower bed, because back in here I've got irises and I've got these torch flowers, and they're going to need to be thinned. And so why not dig up the roots and put them in right here. Alright, coming on into the garden. I'm going to go over here and turn off the electric fence. That way it's not clicking in the microphone. You get that feedback. And it irritates me when I hear it when I'm editing. So I'm sure it probably irritates some of you as well. Alrighty, so beginning over here with the jungle bed and the trellis. I talked in a video the other day about this loofah here and how crazy it is going. And yeah, so, and we've got a running nubsy. Alright, so the other day I came out here and I pruned back a bunch of the foliage once again from the tomato plants to give them some more light. And now you can see we've got a lot more purple color showing up on these Blue Beauty tomatoes. I mean, isn't that just gorgeous? And right over here, look at that. We have our first ripening taking place on one of these tomatoes. And all through here we're starting to get more and more purple on the Blue Beauties because they have more sunlight. And then these last two plants down here, these were Dr. White's. And they're all looking pretty good. There's actually one right over here. This one is starting to take on a yellowish hue. And so I think that might be the first one of the Dr. White's to ripen. Now, as far as the loofah goes, there's all of these buds everywhere, all over these plants. But I'm fairly certain that they're supposed to flower, just like a squash or you know, something along that lines. But so far nothing has opened yet. However, I noticed this morning that this one right here is getting very big. And so I'm thinking that might be the first one to open up. That one right there. And of course, as soon as I decide to come out here and do the tour, the sun decides to show up. But that's alright. Well, do what you gotta do, right? Alright, so this long flower bed over here, we have all of these gorgeous zinnias, these mazurkias. I absolutely love them. I love the variation. You've got ones like that that look like they've been frosted. And then you've got the deep fuchsia color, all the same type, the mazurkias. But I have to tell you, I think, hey guys, my new favorite, and I'm hoping that the color doesn't get washed out with all this sunlight, but look at these. I don't know if that color shows through. These are the Queen Lime Reds from Baker Creek, and they are gorgeous. I love them. Absolutely love them. Now right over here in the center, I had some Cosmos that weren't doing very good. I mean, Cosmos are supposed to flower all summer long, except these ones were dying off. They weren't producing any new buds, so they just looked pretty pitiful. So I decided to just go ahead and remove them, and I didn't want to disturb the other plants or anything, so I didn't pull the roots out. I just left the roots in place, and I simply took some pruners and I just chopped them down at the base, at the soil level. And everything was fine, and then the next day I came out here and all these plants are laid over. I'm not quite sure what has happened. It really looks like an animal got in there and knocked everything down. But I don't know. But now we have this empty space in the middle, and I'm thinking I might need to plant something there because now it just looks empty. Alright, here we have another jungle bed. You know, it's so funny, when I planted these, they looked empty. They didn't look like anything would... I thought these beds were going to look pitiful, and it is amazing to me how big the Cosmos got, how big the Tulsi Basil gets. It's a jungle in there. I've actually got those little sunflowers that I planted, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to see them because they only get about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. So now right here you can see the Snow's Fancy Pickling cucumbers. They are doing fantastic, and we have got cucumbers all over the place. And I don't think it'll be too long before we start picking these, because they're doing great. The ANC pickling cucumbers over here, they're getting blossoms. I don't see any cucumbers yet, but I don't think it'll be too long. These ones don't grow quite as fast as the Snow's Fancy. So on the back side of those cucumbers, you can see the radishes that I planted down in here. This is a daikon radish, and if you can see it down in there, that thing is sticking up out of the ground. It is humongous, but I'm just going to leave it to allow it to do its companion plant thing. Now right here, this is some zinnias that I had planted. And these are the Persian carpet zinnias. I'll be honest with you, I don't love them. They're okay. I mean, they're cheerful and all of that, but they're definitely not the Queen Limes or the Mazurkias. And honestly, these just remind me a lot of marigolds. So I don't think that I will buy them again. I will plant the seeds that I still have and use them, but I don't think that that's something I'll purchase again. Just because I do already plant marigolds, and so why would I want to plant something that looks just like a marigold? To me anyways. The ground cherries here are absolutely covered with fruit, and we've got some of them are beginning to ripen. Like this one right down in here. When the paper turns brown like this, that means the ground cherry inside is ripe. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. I'll tear this open so you can see it. Right there on the inside, we have a ground cherry. And I mentioned a while back that coleus gets flowers that remind me a lot of basil, and this flaming red coleus that I have here with the peppermint has started to flower. And you can see right here how similar it actually is to basil flowers. It's got that tall stalk that comes up. Hi, Nebsy. Let's head on over to the big garden now. So when I planted the garden, in my garden journal, I make a diagram so that I can remember what I put where. And when I planted the zinnias, I just wrote down zinnias and I didn't write down what type they were. And so I went through my seed packets to check them out and see which ones have I opened and which ones have I not opened. And these ones right here and these multicolored ones right here on the end are the cut and come again zinnias. And I love the cheerful colors of these zinnias. My marigolds down there are finally getting buds on them. These are my poor pitiful Dr. Wykes here in the ground. My Mongolian sunflowers, the giant sunflowers, they still don't have heads, they're still leaf producing, and they're going to get really tall, I think, which is why I planted them along the cattle panel so that I can tie them to it if I need to for support. The cosmos back there are getting big and full, and I expect there to be flowers before too long. Here again, more pitiful tomatoes. These are the Amish paste tomatoes. That plant there is doing pretty good. That one right there is all of a sudden looking terrible. I really think it's just a matter of terrible soil. This is just the in-ground, established this year, and we don't have great soil here, which is why I've started doing the raised beds. Not to mention, we also have had next to no rain. Now, we had tons of storms come through the area, and there was lots of thunder, lots of wind, and all of that, but as far as actual rain here, we got maybe an inch. We've just not been getting rain, and what can you do? Red Roselle here, doing good. More cosmos. I think these ones right here were just kind of like the generic cosmos. Those over there were the candy stripe, if I remember correctly. I think that's what they were called, cosmos. These were just generic cosmo seeds. I didn't have a name for them. I don't know what variety they are, but they're coming up. Now here, these tomatoes are actually doing quite well. These are the Verna sage tomatoes. Even though these are the regular in-ground beds, they're not as full as my raised bed ones, but they're still doing really well. I'm really impressed with these Verna sage tomatoes. And if you look right back in there, do you see it? We've got color. So that one is our first Verna sage to ripen. Over on the back side here, we've got more of those Persian carpet zinnias. Again, they're pretty and all, but they're just not as impressive as some of the other varieties. Now over here, my NT half-runner green beans are doing fantastic. They have recovered from the pest attack. I got it under control early on, and as you can see, we've just got bean blossoms everywhere. And I'm actually going to come out here today and take some wire and attach it from the top of that T-post to the top of that T-post, so that these vines up on top, at least some of them, will have something further to grab onto. Because if you see right here, they're grabbing each other. They're like forming a rope because they've got nowhere else to go. And so I'm going to at least give them something a little bit higher to grab onto. And if you can see right here, we have got green beans, little baby green beans. Coming over on this side, these are the Tanya's pink beans. They've definitely struggled because of that pest attack. I don't know how well they'll produce overall, but they are producing. I've got, you can see right here, we've got pink beans, and it looks like I've actually got some that I can come out here and pick and give these a try. The sweet potato vines, I'm glad I gave them plenty of room. They're doing well for the most part. I've got a couple leaves turning brown, but I'll just come out here and pluck those, toss them into the compost. Every day I have to walk out here and take a look, make sure we don't have vines merging into the walkway where they'll get mowed over. They're definitely spreading out, but they are nowhere near as bad as the loofah vines out there. And yes, I know some of you warned me about the loofah. I thought we'd be safe with the trellis. What can I say? So down here on this side, I am so happy to see what I'm seeing here. Look, we have got beautiful green bell peppers happening. Look at that. Finally, there's bell peppers all over these plants. They're definitely slow to join the party, but they have finally arrived. Over here, the marigolds here are starting to get buds. And over there, I'm so excited. The Moon and Stars watermelon has finally started taking off. It's starting to come up the trellis. We've got blossoms. Very happy. The little flower patch that I started and I was questioning, we have some sweet alyssum, finally, for certain. The other ones, I think I know what they are. I think they're flowers, but we'll give them a little more time. Now, the Chinese noodle beans growing on this trellis here, I don't know how well they will produce because, again, these were absolutely decimated by the pest attack that we had not too long ago. And I wasn't sure if any of them that were even going to survive. I do have growth. They are starting to vine up. So hopefully we'll be able to at least get enough of these beans that we can try them. There's not a lot there, but as long as I can at least get a good taste of them and see if we like them, then we'll know if we want to grow them again. Now right down here, I have a couple zucchini plants. And I don't remember if I shared this with you guys, but over there by the raised beds, I have my zucchini bed. And when I was thinning out the plants because I had too many come up, rather than throwing them all into the compost, I decided to stick a couple in the ground and just see if I could transplant them. Because it wouldn't cost me anything, and if they didn't make it, well, they weren't going to make it in the compost pile either. But some of them actually have taken off, and we will probably get some zucchini from these. We have 3 plants right there. 2 of them are doing really well. One of them is kind of puny. And then we've got a couple little itty bitty ones over here that, I mean, they're trying, so we'll give them a chance. Here's more of my sunflowers. These ones actually look like they're starting to form heads. They're about 4 feet tall, and these are the Lemon Queen sunflowers. More of the Cut and Come Again zinnias. Okra. Looks like it's, well, some of it, anyways, is going to make an appearance. Now these right here, I looked them up to see what I had planted here. This was a mix of cactus zinnias. And honestly, this one right here, to me, is the only one that even looks like the cactus zinnias. I mean, they're all obviously zinnias, but I was expecting them to look more like that one. We have more bell peppers. You see one right there on that plant. We eat a lot of bell peppers, and so I was really anxious to see those starting to produce. Now, I mentioned the Moon and Stars watermelon on the trellis here, and over on this side we've got more watermelon vines, and I'm so glad that I gave them plenty of room because they're really taking off. I planted them right there. I left all of this space open. I mean, I did stick a couple flowers over there, but I didn't really plant much in here. And we've got a walkway right there, and as you can see, the vines are just spreading out and making themselves at home. I've got a couple over here underneath the noodle beans. But what's really, really exciting, let me come over here, right down there. Do you see what I see? Yay! Our first baby watermelons. And there's another one right there. So these are the Charlotte Gray watermelons. Or no, Charleston. I always say Charlotte. Charleston Gray watermelons, and they're doing really well, so hopefully these watermelons are successful. Back over to this side, these are muncher cucumbers, doing pretty well. It's interesting to me how most of these clusters of plants, the ones on the east side that get the morning sun, the direct morning sun, are doing so much better than the ones on the west side of the trellises. I mean, even if you look over there at the Mongolian giant sunflowers, it's the same situation. The ones on the east are taller. It's like perfect stair steps right down. The tallest ones on the east, the shorter ones on the west. Same with these Lemon Queen sunflowers right there. It's wild to me how much the morning sun is making a difference. All right, back to the munchers. Check this out. Look at that beauty. That one will be getting picked here before too long. And you can see we got some more back in there. While these vines aren't growing as quickly as the Snow's fancy pickling cucumbers out in the duck garden, we are getting production, so coming along. And then there are these. Again, this is another one of those things that I am so glad I gave it plenty of room. These are the candy roaster squash. These were seeds that I received from a seed swap, and they're doing really well. And right down here we've got squash. So I'm looking forward to giving these a try. I see another one over here, right down there. Cool beans. Now all of these squash plants, the squash, the zucchini, I've got to come out here every day with my duct tape. Every day, because the squash bugs are relentless. And I actually noticed when I was over there, you know, most of the time the squash bugs lay their eggs on the bottoms of the leaves, but I've been getting all those eggs. Well, I noticed over there on one of those squash leaves, or on one of those zucchini leaves, eggs on top of a leaf. Those squash bugs are sneaky. I've also noticed that sometimes they'll get creative and try and hide their eggs underneath the stem of the plant as opposed to on the leaves. So you gotta check your stems too, the vines. And speaking of zucchini, these are all doing really well. I'm so happy with these. These are the Ford Hook zucchinis, and they are growing fantastic. I saw one right over here. Check that out. This will probably be harvested tonight or tomorrow. And another one right down in there. It always amazes me how quickly a zucchini, not necessarily the plant, but the squash, the fruit, how quickly they grow. I mean, they'll go from this big to this big in overnight practically. It's wild. And last but not least, my two raised beds over here. I mean, just look at this, you guys. Raised beds are definitely going to be added in the future. That's just without a doubt. There's really no comparison between how well the plants do in these raised beds as opposed to the in-ground beds. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've got production, we've got growth and everything, but there's really just no comparison. I mean, you look at those Verna sage tomatoes over there. Yes, there's tomatoes. Yes, we've got ripening happening, but it's like two different kinds of tomatoes. When you look at those, and then you come over here, and you look at these. I mean, just look at all of these tomatoes. They're everywhere. These plants are just covered with fruit. Now I have noticed that the Verna sage tomatoes, these plants will curl up a bit in the heat. They don't really like the heat that much, but these are really strong, hardy plants. I mean, just the stems, the vines are just thick and solid, and they're just really impressive. And despite the complaining about the heat, they're still really producing well. I mean, just look at all these tomatoes. They're everywhere. They're not huge, but there's a whole lot of them. But speaking of huge, oh my word, you guys, look at these. Look at these beauties. These are Dr. Wykes, and they are humongous. Humongous. I am so happy with how well these tomatoes are doing. And then over here on the end, my lone blue beauty in this bed. And then finally, the pepper bed. Oh my word, you guys, there are so many peppers. I have 3 plants of each variety in here, with the exception of the cayennes, because they just did not germinate this year for me, and I only have 2 in there, and even of those 2, only one of them is really doing very well. But y'all, we have so many peppers. So right down here, this first one here, these are Tabasco peppers, and they're kind of late bloomers, but we do have flowers that are setting, and so we'll be getting peppers here before too long. But then the next ones over are the cubanelles, which, you know, I have already been harvesting. I have that recipe that I shared for the stuffed cubanelles on my blog, and I've actually got a couple. I've got at least one over on the other side that I need to harvest. It's actually turning colors. The next ones here are the habaneros, and again, peppers everywhere. Oh my word, what are we gonna do with all these habaneros? Here is this is my lone cayenne plant that is doing well. The other one over there, I mean, it's there, but it's got a couple blossoms on it, but I don't really expect to get much of anything from that. But this one right here is doing pretty well, and we do have peppers. At least we're getting enough that I'll be able to dehydrate them and grind them up for, you know, red pepper, cayenne pepper, for cooking. And then there's the jalapenos. We've got lots and lots of jalapenos, especially that plant over there is just insanely covered with them. There's several that are going to get harvested, and today I think. I think what I might do to use up some of the jalapenos is make some pepper jelly, which I can give as gifts or whatever, but I think that might be a great way of using them up. And then the lipstick pepper. We've got lipstick peppers. Interesting things. I have not used any of these yet. I've never grown them, never used them, never tried them. But I do know they're supposed to be a little bit hot. I'm not sure how hot it has, like in comparison to say a jalapeno or a habanero, but we'll give them a try. And then there's these. These I know are definitely hot, the Chinese 5-color, and they start off purple and they slowly start changing colors, and eventually they'll become red. And you can see we've got some back here that are turning yellow. You see they get that kind of mottled color, and they turn yellow and orange, and somewhere eventually they're red. We've got a gajillion of these. Almost every one of my pepper plants has had to be staked up because it was so heavy with peppers that they were falling over under their own weight. And looky here, I mentioned these last week, this lilac. It was just beginning to bud last week, and now you can see we've got flowers all over. And you know, it's pretty. I still can't remember what kind of lilac this is, what variety that is. I know it's heat tolerant, good for the south, but while it's pretty, it has no fragrance. And to me, one of the best smells in the world, is fresh lilac. Not artificial lilac, real fresh lilacs. It's one of my favorite smells, and there's no smell. So sad. But they're pretty and the bees like them, so, you know. And it provides a little bit of shade for the bantams to go underneath there if they want to, and all of that. So that is the garden tour for this week, but I do have one other thing that I want to show you before I call it quits for this video. Down here on the corner of the garden, I have my compost area. I need to come over here and trim, clean it up a little bit, because we've got weeds growing around it and all. But I wanted to show you something. Now, I mentioned how when I had baby plants that I didn't need, were extra, or were spindly or whatever, I would just throw them in the compost pile. You know, I didn't want that plant matter to go to waste, and so I would take the soil that was in the little pots, and soil and plant and all, and I would just dump it into the compost. Well, look what we have here. We have got a very healthy tomato plant of some sort growing here in the compost pile, and we might actually I think we have 2 of them growing in the compost pile. So as I come out here and I throw stuff into the compost, I'm throwing it over on this side so that I don't bury those tomato plants, just because we want to see if they're going to actually produce something. I mean, there's blossoms, and I don't know what kind they are, but who knows? Maybe we'll get some volunteer tomatoes. So there you go, you guys. That is the garden tour for the week. This is week 6 of the 2019 garden season here at A Good Life Farm. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all next time.